Hey guys, Corey Digman here from Digman Fitness. I want to take you guys through the 5 main simple areas that we can cover as far as flexibility, range of motion goes. So how can we test to make sure that we know what stretches to do within our strength and conditioning plan, or what foam rolling exercises we can do to make most use of our time? So I want to cover a checklist of them 5 main areas throughout my body, from my neck all the way down through my ankle. Okay, so some of those are great areas to cover both foam rolling and stretching. Research has shown that foam rolling, in addition to stretching, static and movement-based stretching is great for range of motion improvement and preventing injuries. So the first one, let's start off with our neck. So standing nice and tall, nice position here. I'm just going to simply tilt my head to the side. If I can get at least a good 45-degree drop there, that's optimal without pain or restriction. If there, again, I want to mention that if there's any pain or restrictions, if there's any past injuries, you want to consult a physical therapist and get these tests done. So I'm just showing you some of the areas that I cover within my assessment process and reevaluation process, so I know what specific stretches are for you to prevent injury and pain, okay? Tilting side to side. This is also a stretch that we cover. If I'm stretching my upper trap, I'm putting my hand behind my back and tilting the opposite way. That's stretching the lateral aspect of my neck, the upper trap area, okay? Next, we have flexion extension, dropping chin down and head up. We're able to do that without restriction or minimal restriction. That's good, that's optimal. And then rotation, chin to shoulder without restriction or pain. That covers the neck. Moving on down, so shoulders, we have flexion, abduction, and rotation. I'm going to show you first in this view, side view, and against the wall. We use the wall for the assessment. So the first one, I'm going to get a little lower so I can have the full picture of me in the video. So you're going to be standing tall on this. You could be a few inches away from the wall, 5 to 6 inches, but you want to rotate the pelvis so the abs are tight and there's no space in the lumbar. So it's a positive test, or if there's tightness, you're going to want to arch your back, especially on a flexion test. You're going to want to arch because there's some restriction, maybe in the shoulder, maybe in the lat, okay? So tilt here, abs tight, arms straight, thumbs to wall, up overhead, and back down. So if you see any elbow flexion or arching, a few exercises you guys can do. Number one is to foam roll pec into the front side, okay? Just like this, laying on the floor, upper part of my pec, side to side, cross friction as I stretch my arm overhead. And then into the back side, rotator cuff into the lat area. I can do a pin and stretch, so I'm hitting this area and then I'm reaching overhead at the same time. Each static stretch or foam roll, 30 seconds to a minute on each of these areas that are overactive. Okay, so hitting that lat, if you're missing that overhead reach, optimal position, you want to lengthen the lat and also draw attention to the pec minor, inner front side of our shoulder here. Okay, so those are 2 foam rolling areas. Stretches you can do, simply a pec stretch and a lat stretch. So if I find a wall, elbows at 90 degrees, right across my shoulder, I'm going to reach back and step through, nice and gentle, making sure that the shoulder is down and back and relaxed as you're doing this. Hold for 30 seconds to a minute, a few times a day, daily. Lat stretch, I'm simply going to reach overhead. I'm going to show you from the side view. I'm reaching overhead, I'm grabbing the wall, my palms back, and I'm sitting back against that, okay? Just like this, sliding up, holding here. Okay, the next exercise, next assessment is the Abductions Test. So arms are straight. I have my feet away from the wall, just slightly here. Abs are tucked, just like we started on the last one. Abduct here. If there's no shoulder flexion, then that's an optimal range of motion. If there is, again, hit the same 2 stretches that we covered before. And lastly, same position, we're going to do rotation. So we can get palms to wall and at least 30 degrees of internal rotation, that's optimal. If you can't quite get to the wall for arching, can't quite get there, the best stretch you can do is a pec stretch again. But even better yet is getting into a corner arms up and leaning in. That'll get the rotator cuff, the internal rotators of that shoulder in the pec area, okay? 30 seconds to a minute. And again, foam rolling the area, going to massage therapist is optimal with that, okay? Moving on to the rotation test. This is best done in a seated position. If I have 4 points and I'm sitting in the middle, I have a dowel across my chest. I rotate. If I can get 45 degrees, that's optimal. So my obliques and my lats are in an optimal length to keep me injury free. If so, we can cover some foam rolling, some stretching, sitting into a child's pose position, reaching overhead, sitting back, adding a little bit of a rotation as I'm grabbing a hold of the floor here. Same position on the wall, or using a TRX strap to grab and kind of rotate as I sit back against that resistance, okay? Next, we have our hip and into our ankle areas next. So, groin, hamstring, hip flexor, quad. Good test simply is if I'm able to squat at a full depth without any restriction or pain. Again, if there's past injuries with the knee, the ankles, the hips, there's some modified versions on this you can do. Just simply, if this was a chair, if I can sit in my chair and I can kind of lean forward, opening up my groin and reaching for the floor. If there's minimal restriction, if I can get my knee at least past 90 degrees, then that's good if you've had knee replacement, knee surgeries. But ideally, if you're somebody that's younger, you want to be shoulder width apart, toes maybe slightly pointed out. If I can go all the way down and hang out down here while keeping a 3-point contract. Heel, big toe, little toe with the floor. And there's no restriction or minimal restriction, this is good. Chesting up. If there's a little restriction, I can work on, if my ankle's a little tight in addition to this, I can shift forward and I can push my knees out with my elbows here, taking reps or 30 seconds to a minute. Checking the ankle, if this represents a wall, I put my toe up against it, keeping my heel down, see if I can get my knee to the wall without that coming up, okay? If I get at least a fist distance away, that's optimal. Get that knee to the wall without that heel lifting up. So that's a check angle range of motion. You also want to check a lateral flexion, rotation on that ankle. Continually doing these throughout the day, every day, providing blood flow to the area. Ankle's great because we need good support and mobility in that joint, okay? So splitting that, backtracking here on that squat, if we want to segmentalize and see, maybe I fall forward and maybe I shift. I want to find out what the hip flexor, the quad, and the hamstring are doing. So if the squat is not optimal, if I'm not getting this nice smooth range of motion here, then I want to check and see for sure what specific areas that I can cover to kind of help improve that. So the first one is the 90-90 hamstring. So I'm on my back. Again, not a lot of these I recommend to do on your own, but this is kind of an idea for you to see what is coming from my side. Okay, what I'm doing is an assessment. This upper leg is straight up to the ceiling, hands here, lay back, extend the leg up with that foot flexed, back down. The idea is to get that leg up to 90 degrees here. That's optimal. Okay, if there's a little restriction, again, research has shown that foam rolling in addition to static and active range of motion is ideal. Cross friction, 30 seconds to a minute, before and after your routine. Simple hamstring stretch is hinge pattern stretch, back flat, hinge, 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 hinge. If I start to feel my pelvis start to roll, try to correct that, stand up a little bit, hold here, just kind of work through, squeeze the glute, work through range of motion, especially if it's before a routine. These are good active exercises. Otherwise, a static stretch would simply to be grab a strap around your ankle or your foot, pull back, hold. Or your leg, as long as you can keep this leg and this leg straight. Okay, 30 seconds to a minute. Next we have hip range of motion, internal external range of motion. So the fader and the Faber test. Check the internal range of motion and external. So simply, if I can lay on my back and I can put my ankle over my knee and that knee drops down, if it's elevated a little bit here, they can't quite get that knee level parallel with the floor, that's a little bit of tightness in there. What you can do is a groin stretch. Grabbing hold of a pole, TRX strap, squat rack, and just hitting side to side here. Segmentally, I have these exercises categorized in our corrective stretch playlists on YouTube channel, but I could also let you guys know by emailing you each of these separately. Okay, hitting that groin stretch, getting down in this position here, or maybe if you're on a chair, hitting that groin stretch by leaning forward, pushing your knees out to open that up. Okay, so see, what does that range of motion look like in that groin? By laying on your back, ankle over knee here, both legs, and then the other way, walking your feet out, dropping the knees in. What's that internal range of motion looks like? If that's a little tight, if you can't quite get your knees to kind of come together, or even if you're on your back, what does that internal range of motion look like when you drop your legs out? This is not ideal to do on your own because you can't see it, but again, this is kind of what I'm going through as an assessment process. So then if there's restriction, you can do that crossover stretch, knee at 90, chest up, hinge over, 30 seconds to a minute. Seated version, you can do the same thing on a bench or a bed on each side. In addition to loosening up the piriformis. A lot of times when people have sciatic nerve issues, tightness, numbness down the side of the hip, lower back. Pin that, get on top of that leg, stretching that same side, pull that knee to your chest, and then relax. Okay? 30 seconds to a minute on each side. And then lastly, our ankle, making sure that we have range of motion in every which way, constantly doing ankle circles, keep yourself moving. Activation exercises, strength, and integration is another video you want to do in addition to this to keep optimal alignment. So stretching is good, but knowing specifically what stretches are for you is most important. So go through these tests, see what your rotation looks like in your neck, your shoulder, abduction, interorectional rotation, flexion extension, your rotation of your spine, hitting this nice deep squat with minimal restriction. If I can hang out here without my ankles or knees or hips getting numb, this is optimal. This is what you guys need to look for as a checklist. Okay, so stay tuned, have fun.